Good day and welcome to Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. That is Sharc with a C, not a K. You see the big Sharc logo in orange and blue on the wall behind me, and we are made possible by our good friends at places like Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities right through April of 2021. Lipolis Electric, don't be left in the dark, get Lipolis. And Hightower Westchester. At Hightower, they manage your wealth to a fiduciary standard. Welcome to On the Beat in Westchester. We are joined by our good friend John Bailey, the publisher and editor of Plains CitizeNet Reporter, wastewater.com. John Bailey, good to have you back. How are you? I know it's
good. Great to be here.
Month of October, it's underway, the presidential election a month away, and who is stirring up controversy by contracting COVID-19? The pandemic hits home. The President of the United States, Donald John Trump. There has been some controversy about whether or not he knew he had COVID and walked around for a day or two, attended fundraising events, came back here home to Bedminster, New Jersey, went to Minnesota. Also, on Sunday, he hops in an SUV, leaves the hospital and waves to supporters in a sealed SUV. Was he potentially endangering?
But he wasn't attached to anything.
Was he endangering his Secret Service protection inside that SUV with him and possibly more? The controversy continues as the president maybe gets ready to be released and sent back home to the White House. What's your read on all of this, and what's the read locally?
Your guess is as good as mine. I don't see how, if he's getting a drip of one medicine and another, that you can detach that, put him in a car, send him out there. I mean, I've never heard of that. I mean, they didn't do that with any of the 200,000 dead people, did they?
No,
I don't
they
think
did
so.
not.
No, they did not. I do not understand that. It was, and as far as I'm concerned, the one thing he might have done the last 4 days is sincerely apologize for the people he infected. Wouldn't that been? That would have been really nice of him. But he
is this all because of his desire to get reelected? Because sometimes I look at the things Donald Trump has done. And I looked at this 4 years ago when he got elected. He seemed to at times be making moves of somebody who didn't really want to get elected. Some of the things he said and did, but instead everything he said and did snowballed in the direction of getting himself elected, and he did. So we have to stop and think now. Does somebody who knows he has COVID-19, who wants to be reelected president, go to Minnesota or come home for a fundraiser at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey? Just the look of that. He's a smart guy. He knows. There's somebody who wants to get reelected, who is hospitalized at probably the best hospital in the country, Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland. Does he leave his hospital bed, hop into an SUV with Secret Service agents? It's hermetically sealed. Nothing can get in or out. He knows there's going to be criticism about that, just to wave to some supporters outside. It almost sounds like in some ways he wants to wave goodbye to the White House.
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I just think it was a photo op. That's all it was. He's still running. If he goes
still
back
running, but the implications of that photo op, he knows what they would be. Maybe he feels the positives could outweigh the negatives and he has to do this.
Well, that's what Rudy Giuliani says, that astute commentator on public events. And
now we have a rise of COVID locally in New York City, some shutdowns in some neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens about to happen again. We have a rise in COVID in some communities in Rockland and Orange counties. And currently we have a rise in COVID in at least one community here in Westchester.
Yes, a quite significant 8% rate of increase, more than any other, including, let's see, of course, Rockland and the other county really have an astronomical rate of infection, according to the governor's stats. I mean, the governor's stats are alarming. Over 20%, rate of increase. that
I
is
saw
beyond belief.
27% in one community, I think,
Yes,
in
it
Brooklyn,
was.
too. Incredible.
And not only that, but the state infection rate, the county infection rate is now 1.2. Now that's beyond the 1.1 that the governor said was, a stable growth, to say the least. But now the question is, what does the county do about this? How does the county prevent us in Westchester from getting higher than 1.2? If I was delivering a state of the county message this week, I would address that with specifics.
Now, when everything began back in March and we had that first case in New Rochelle, that 1 mile area in the north end of New Rochelle, if I recall correctly, was locked down. Might we have to do this again in Portchester or any place else where pockets of COVID reappear?
Yes. I mean, an 8% rate plus a follow-up, and then they mysteriously disappear off of the governor's radar in 24 hours. That doesn't smell right to me. It didn't suddenly go down at that infection rate. I mean, I was really shocked at that because it was not on the Hot 20 Saturday and Sunday. Wasn't on it. So who knows? Maybe they clamped down on it, but we do not know whether the governor has gone into Portchester and has really increased the tracing or not. The fact that we don't know, and Portchester is a pretty populous city, and it's right next to Rye, and there could be a spread, and there's a lot of outdoor dining in Rye now. Have you been down there?
No, not recently. A few weeks ago.
No, they've closed off the street, and the entire street there is outdoor dining.
Yeah, a few weeks ago, I was in Rye, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, etc., and what they did outdoors was astounding with outdoor dining. But the weather is getting cooler now, and there had been talk that some of it would have to be pulled in and reined in.
And now, but truly, the COVID spread in Westchester County, if there is going up, that's what the figures said last week, and it also is double what it was at the beginning of August. I figured this out looking at the governor's charts. So in August, it was about 0.9 as of the 1st of August. And after September, it is, as I recall, 1.2. It doubled since September, when everything.
What does this do? Forget the weather. What does this do about the reopening of businesses, of restaurants, and especially schools around this county?
Well, it depends on the school situation. It's just amazing that we aren't doing more testing in the schools. And that is the responsibility of the Westchester County Department of Health, but they are just directing students and to attend schools to places where they can get tested. They're not immediately whisking them someplace and taking charge. That bothered me.
All right, so should we have a mandate demanding that every county resident gets tested, or maybe from the governor that every state resident gets a test?
Well, he can't test them all. We are testing a lot. He tested the most the state has ever tested on Sunday, I believe. And to my way of thinking, the whole idea of testing possible infections in the county is not being handled in a forthright manner. They have to, like in White Plains, in daycare too. In White Plains, they have 12 daycare centers for parents who have to have, or both parents have to work. And we do not understand if there is indeed adequate daycare to help people get their kids back to school. Okay? But that has not been made clear either. But the county engaged Family Services of Westchester to do the apportionment. We do have no reports on that. I mean, there's a lot of things in the county that we do not know about what they're doing, and we should know.
Could it be that they just don't want to alarm the public? Like the president said when he first found out about COVID, what he told Bob Woodward during the winter, he didn't want to ring off the alarm bells. This seems to be the MO of our political leaders, those in office, no matter where we go. And I can't fault them for that, because we saw the run on everything when we thought things were getting really bad, and they were probably worse than what we heard. Imagine if we had heard that worse than what we heard, how bad that run on everything would have been. We might have nothing now in any of the stores.
Well, we have plenty now, but
we do.
It's quite astounding that, I mean, is the Northeast getting all the food in the country? You know, you really wonder.
Right.
And
we've had a great recovery, no doubt, but that recovery is impacted obviously by what our leaders in office, our public figures say and do, how they say and do it too.
Yeah. Well, right now, the big question really is stopping these outbreaks in the New York City area. Because less parents are going to go back to work because they're afraid their children are going to get sick, and it is irresponsible of the communities in those hot spots in New York to do the gatherings that they did and not do it is civically irresponsible to do that, and they were warned, but nobody listens because, well, they either have a certain creed or they hold religious services. I tell you, if I was a pastor, I would never have held any gathering out of concern for my flock. And
you talk about the spread and reeling in that spread. And we do know that people from the affected communities in Brooklyn and Queens travel to have relatives in, attend services in, go to different events and outings in Westchester, in Rockland, in Orange County. We've seen the spread, a much bigger spread so far than we have in Westchester.
I would not step foot in Rockland County.
But down the Jersey Shore, too. You get a lot of people who go from Brooklyn, especially, go through Staten Island, go down to the communities in Lakewood and Howell and Toms River in that area, down Route 9 in Ocean County, and also communities along Routes 35 in Monmouth County and Route 9 and 71 in Monmouth County, too. So we're talking about a pretty widespread area where people travel and can move COVID around again.
Yeah, a lot of traveling on these nice weekends, too. Up the Taconic.
The weather's been great, so people have been getting out, and that's not helping us flatten the curve or keeping things under control.
Right, and but let's face it, and no pun intended, but they have to enforce and find people not wearing masks. They're reluctant to do that because it's unpopular.
Yeah, this has been going on for months. Yeah, we'll fine you, but nobody does anything. I heard some talk the other day that if people don't start wearing their masks around New York City, that the governor, and across the state too, that the governor is going to put together a commission to look into it.
Yes, no, actually, he should put together a task force. That's the operative word here. Commission is old school.
They'll look into
what is a task force? It's something that holds a lot of meetings, suggests some stuff, but never has any teeth.
No. There's no sense in issuing a mandate and you say it's a must do if you don't enforce that mandate on those who are not doing it.
Absolutely.
But eventually it may come to that, and that's a good thing, obviously. I think we're heading in that direction now with those quick lockdowns in Brooklyn and in Queens. Now, John Bailey is the editor and publisher of the White Plains CitizenNet Reporter. They are online at whiteplains.citizennetreporter.com. We are Westchester Talk Radio. I'm John Marino, westchestertalkradio.com, produced by Sharc Creative. That's Sharc with a C, not a K, made possible by our good friends at places like NQG, the Indian Point Energy Center. White Plains Hospital. At White Plains Hospital, we say thank you to all of our heroes on the front lines there and all around the tri-state area at all the hospitals and medical centers and facilities for all you have done and continue to do throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction in Armonk. John Bailey, here we are in October, Election Day, a month away. The feelings about absentee balloting around Westchester now, mail-in ballots. Now, it's a great idea in this COVID era. It's something we have to do, and yet we see all these problems now in New York City, on Long Island, around the tri-state area. We saw what happened in Paterson, New Jersey a few months back. And where are we at with this now, just a few weeks away? Making me think, you know what, I'd better go to the polls on Election Day.
You're not the first person who's told me that. At a gathering I held, socially distanced between four friends we had not seen in 7 months, and they live right here.
Great to see you. Sorry I can't shake your hand, right? Yeah.
No, we elbow locked. You know?
Yeah.
Yes, the elbow, and wore masks, and but it was pleasant to see people. And as Governor Cuomo would say, I get it. We miss people. Okay, and we really needed that socialization, and heaven knows marriages could use a lot of social distancing, but you can't do that because we are really close together.
You see the value of couples having their own time, as couples say, as opposed to spending all of their time together.
Well, I mean, I've gotten a lot of great meals. She's cooking a lot more, and she's very nice to me, puts up with me, and lets me stay in the house, even though she owns it.
Which is the key point.
Hasn't thrown me out yet. As
long as you have a roof over your head, you're doing okay.
Absolutely.
As for absentee balloting, we're not doing so okay from what we see.
Well, it has cast all sorts of doubts on the abilities of getting the right absentee ballots in the hands of the right voters, and it just feeds into the Republican strategy of contesting any election result. It counts early voting, absentee ballots, throwing them all out. The call for polls inspection, I mean, which is unconstitutional, by the way. You can't do that. You know, what do they say? Checking people coming into vote. Can't do that. You just check the rolls, but you can't make observations of the polls. But this just feeds into the trying to discredit early voting, which many states did. Many states thought this was a good idea. Plenty of red ones, too.
I have an aside here, or maybe more than an aside. My mother passed away last December. She got her absentee ballot in the mail. Me, I'm waiting for a while, and I'm still waiting for my absentee ballot. My father did get his. My brother, I don't know. My girlfriend, I don't think she's gotten hers yet, out in Queens. And it's just making me think, you know what? I may have to go to the polls on Election Day to make sure my vote counts, even if I get that absentee ballot.
Be prepared for a long, long, long wait.
I'm going to have to figure out a way to maybe do some early balloting. That might be the best way to get it in.
Yes. Now, one point is that in New York State, it is not a problem if we have a problem, because it'll be a landslide for Biden.
Right, no doubt about that. I don't doubt how the election is going to turn out.
So,
here.
I mean, this is not a big problem.
I think I can win my home state. This is a very blue state, very blue area in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. I don't think he has a shot, no matter what he does or what happens in any of these three states. But we have other elections down the line. We have major elections in our area, the congressional election for the 18th with Sean Patrick Maloney running for re-election against Shelley Farley, the Republican. And in the same area, you're talking that northern Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess area, the 40th state senatorial district race between the incumbent Democrat Pete Harckham and the challenger, one-time county executive Rob Astorino. Every vote in these two races must be counted.
Yeah, it's going to be really close. I would suggest that Mr. Astorino has a good chance of winning that. Rockland
is his home district, I believe, where he grew up.
Trumpy.
Yeah, where I've mentioned before that the hometown guy, I think, automatically gets an advantage, where Pete Harckham, when he was on the county board, he represented the area he comes from, which is the Lewisboro area in the northeastern portion of Westchester. Rob Astorino, of course, from Thornwood, and Westlake High School he was a graduate of. So that whole 40th
the man of the people type.
And, he's been a public figure in that area since the age of 13, basically. So everybody knows Rob Astorino. I do think that gives him the hometown, home field, home court advantage to start with.
Yeah, I think Astorino is going to beat Harcum. But
by a lot or a close race?
I think it'll be close, but not really. Look, Harcum is not a dynamic figure. And he has always been sort of low key and not quick to react on stuff, and that's the way he campaigns. I just don't think he's a good campaigner. Astorino could talk the wolf out of sheep's clothing, for lack of a better thing. No, Astorino is so smooth. He's so glib, and he's such a nice fellow. He goes to the meeting at the county center for Let Them Play Now, and I mean, he just took over the meeting. He basically charms everybody, and though I don't particularly agree that we should all return to play, I mean, he's solid. As I say, he's great at selling a proposition.
And full disclosure, like we did the last time, Rob and I are old colleagues and friends for 30 plus years, our many years together at WFAS Radio in White Plains. Rob was a news anchor and reporter there, also worked in sales, and was our program director also too at WFAS, my last few years there. And yet Pete Harcum, on the other side of the coin, was the Democratic majority leader on the county board a few years back, which gave him a lot of exposure, which I think helped him obviously get the seat in the 40th, which is kind of based on the other side of the county from where he grew up in, on the other side across the county from Lewisboro. So we have a lot of things there that when you mix and match them all together and you lay all your apples and oranges and coins on the table, makes for a pretty interesting race on election day where every vote has to be counted. Some way, shape, or form, every vote in every race has to be counted, even the presidential race where I think we know what the outcome is going to be. If you vote for whomever, Donald Trump or Joe Biden, don't you want your vote to count? If you're Joe Biden, don't you want to say, I won the state of New York by one more vote? If you're Donald Trump, don't you want him to be able to say, doesn't he want to be able to say, well, all right, I didn't come as close as I thought in New York, but I did come one vote closer. It all matters.
Well, even when he lost by 3 million votes, he felt he won. So, I mean, he doesn't do math well, John. He doesn't do math.
It depends. The new math, it all depends on how you work the spreadsheets, right? That's how they do it in the business world, right down on Wall Street. Rework, you don't get good numbers. You go to the guy who brings it to you and says, rework those spreadsheets.
But make no mistake, Mr. Trump is a masterful salesman.
No doubt about that.
That's right. He sells you. He could sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, and he sold a lot of banks Brooklyn Bridges. Right?
Yep. And he has a presence here in our area with his course in Briarcliff Manor. He has the course up in Dutchess County, too. He has the golf course under the Whitestone Bridge. So he's a major developmental figure when it comes to recreational and golf and things like that, activities in our area, too. Besides the way we see Donald Trump as the real estate guy, the entertainer who became president of the United States, he has his hands, of course, his brand, his clothing line that he's had, too. He has his hands in many different businesses and areas, and it all leads to and obviously adds to his aura selling his brand.
Yes, he is a strong man, politically a strong man who demonstrates a very macho, hands-on way of doing things, and this appeals to a lot of voters. It's the John Wayne effect. Not that Mr. Trump is any John Wayne, but John Wayne, we all know, was just acting parts. And intriguing thing about it is that the strongman personality really survives in politics. Reagan had that image. Let's see, who else can I name? Giuliani, the strong man type. And this is very appealing to voters because they tell you what you want to hear, and the voter says, yeah, he's absolutely right. I like this guy. But
and it makes you think he can overcome any obstacle, too, when a politician acts tough. And I think that's the real impetus behind Donald Trump getting out of his hospital bed or room or suite and getting in that SUV and taking the ride.
It sends a message. He says, I'm not going to stay on this. I'm going to beat this thing. That's very appealing.
That's what he has. That's appealing to people, strong. No doubt about that.
It has blown up the Biden performance in the debate. Nobody's talking about that now. The timing was perfect for him to go to hospital.
And I think whether or not you will vote for the president to be reelected or like his policies or not, or like his personality and the way he does things or not, you do have to wish him the best. And you have to hope that some of the things he's done the past few days during his recovery, like leaving the hospital and getting into that SUV, or you worry, might they release him from the hospital too soon, that it doesn't come back to bite him any further or any worse than where we hear he might have been a few days ago. That's a major concern, I think. That would make things even worse for him instead of better.
Well, we will see. However, it creates a tremendous outpouring of sympathy for him in the election. It's the best thing that did happen to him, because he was going down the polls like a corpse with cement on him.
And then you see those, he will generate, I think, some sympathy for him because of this. And people say, well, he's out of the hospital in 3 days. So
he's a tough guy. He deserves another 4 years because he's so tough. Right.
Yeah, there's no question. He's a New York City guy, an off-the-street guy, if I can put it that way, a neighborhood guy from Jamaica, Queens, a Jamaica Avenue, Hillside Avenue type of guy who happened to ascend to the White House. And I think that's an image that, as much as New York is looked down upon and I think despised around the country, yet when they see somebody play up to that image, that appeals across the country, I think, which I think helped him get elected the first time around.
You couldn't have written the script better.
John, here in Westchester, the county is considering placing a wastewater treatment plant near a park in Yonkers, which is the southwest side of Yonkers, that is generating lots of community opposition, where it looks like, again, the government says we can go into a neighborhood like this where people may not be as affluent or not as affluent as they are in other areas and stick a wastewater treatment plant there. And what are they going to do about it?
Well, does the county have any money to build this park?
You know what I find when it comes to politics? What I find when it comes to politics is that if you want to do something, if you want to build something, you find the money to do it, even if it's not really there.
Yeah, and what about all the sewer leaks we have to fix? That's been conveniently forgotten in this crisis. And truly, the county really has to, and the county executive has to address this whole budget deficit that the county faces. He has to say, well, we plan on fixing this by bonding for it, not raising taxes. Bonding is the best way to do it. Taxes are
going to go up now in the wake of what the budget might be and the effect of COVID and the apparent return, at least in some areas, of COVID, and us waiting to see if we get a full-blown return of COVID during the much colder months.
Well, what the important thing to do is he has to balance out his deficit when he does the new budget for 2021. And he has to plug the gap and also figure out how he's going to fix Playland. He has to settle with Standard Amusements and pay them off if he doesn't want to let them continue handling Playland. He has a lot of money that he has to commit to solve problems. And how he's going to do that, my recommendation, bond rates are really lower than ever. They can offer tax-free municipal bonds, and that would be the way to do it without killing the taxpayers and thrill Wall Street. They love municipal tax-free bonds.
Would taxpayers understand if they went up a tick, if you had to pay just a tick more, considering how far down we went and how far back we've come and how much more?
I think you're
still
looking at a
needs to be done?
6% tax increase, property tax wise, a huge amount. And we never had that much in my memory. And it's probably closer a 10% increase in taxes if you wanted to cover all his outstanding deficits, which of course were approved by the Democratic administrations under Astorino. So they have a big problem. They're responsible for it as much as Astorino was.
And yet, somebody sitting on the county board or in the county executive seat could say prices go up everywhere. You go to the supermarket, something was $3 today, it's $5 tomorrow. And that's the way taxes work, too, in order to pay for the things that we have to pay for.
So did their salaries.
Pay for the prices.
So did their salaries. So did their salaries, by the way. That's right.
Not everybody's salary, but for some, right?
Legislators' salaries go up.
For some.
Right. And we keep hacks on in positions just because they're a hack, and nobody can seem to get along without that.
Speaking of things going up, how about tolls on the Mario M. Cuomo Tappan Zee Bridge? Are tolls going to be going up there? Hearing that they could be.
Well, I think New York State has to give a debt of thanks to their true first responders, and that is not holding the state accountable for paying what they owe on the Tappan Zee Bridge yet. I mean, that is a really mystery to me, because I figured you'd have to have at least a $10 toll to figure out to pay the bonds off.
$10. Wow.
Easily.
From where it is
$10.
now.
Yeah, but
wow.
I mean,
who needs a new bridge at that point? No, we did need a new bridge, no doubt. But, the governor the past few years since day one has pretty much been silent on how much tolls might go up. And maybe when you throw out a figure like that, we see potentially why. So let's see what happens with that, whether tolls go up and how much they go up by.
They're not going to go up until 2022. If the governor is going to run for another term, he will not raise the tolls as exponentially. But that means he has made some sort of arrangement to take care of the debt from that bridge. But we don't know what that is. We still owe the money. We took out those.
Right. The bill has to be paid somehow, no doubt about that. Now,
well, I think
Governor
you and
Cuomo,
I are going to pay for it. Mr. and Mrs. New York State will pay for it.
I'm going to set aside a few extra bucks right now. Okay.
Right. Exactly.
Let me reach in my wallet right now, put a few bucks aside to go on the Tappan Zee Bridge in 2022. If I put those few bucks aside, put it in the bank, get a little interest between now and 2022, that'll help cover the tolls, right? Any toll increase, we hope. So, although you don't get much for your money in a bank nowadays. The governor a few days ago hosted a webinar online for an Albany law firm in which more than 400 people associated with the law firm, employees, etc., attended. Everybody who attended that webinar got a copy of the governor's new book about leadership during the COVID crisis here in 2020. Is that okay? Is it okay for the governor or his staff, etc., or the publisher says we didn't do it, whomever it might have been, to hand out those books as a thank you?
It was on his performance on COVID? That's the topic of the book?
That's the topic of the book.
He's running for governor for another term. That's what that says to me, because right now we're running into the second wave. So it's how he handles the second wave that is the other side of the story, as Paul Harvey would say.
It's about the COVID crisis, leadership lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic is what the book is about.
Right, which he writes in his spare time, of course.
Yeah. So, there have been questions raised. There have been questions obviously raised about the way the nursing home situation was handled in New York State a few months after the worst of it. It's still a topic of discussion and debate. Apparently, a Freedom of Information Act law filing was made with the state health department. The state health department says they have all the numbers, the figures on who died in nursing homes, who came from hospitals, etc. But they're not going to release those figures now. They'll be released on November 5th, a couple of days after the election, if this is such a blue state, which it is, why wait so long? Why wait for that date? That just, to me, doesn't smell right or look right. I don't think if you released those numbers today, they would have any effect on the election.
Well, no one wants to drop something into a middle of election and break people's concentration on the issues, John. Don't you realize that? So why would they want to complicate matters by dropping in this Sharc headline data before the election? But no, my feeling is this nursing home protest, these citizens groups coming out of nowhere protesting this. Where were they when they were dying? Okay? Where were they when they were dying in droves at the beginning of please. Now, this has been explained at the press conference after press conference by the governor's secretary, pointed out to every reporter who asked it, and one reporter particularly would ask this every press conference, and she said the law is that if you cannot take care of a patient being turned back into your care in a nursing home, you have to tell the state, we can't take them, we can't care for them, and then the state will find a place that will take care of them. This was explained time and again, so this is just a hand-wringing attempt to protect the nursing home owners. They should thank the citizens group for their concern, but it's a little late.
I think a lot of this was generated by the desire of the state and the state health department to make sure that hospitals had enough beds for incoming patients at the height of the COVID outbreak, the height of the pandemic. So they had no place to move patients, and a lot of these patients came from nursing homes into hospitals, so they just moved them back. And pro or con,
they did move them back because the nursing home accepted them. The law says if they accept it, they take responsibility.
Okay.
But
whether or not it was a worthy policy on the part of the health department, I think that's open to debate. But yeah, we see their concern, and that's a legitimate concern. During something like this, you got to have hospital beds in order for people to be able to recover and, most importantly, stay alive. Yeah. Absolutely. John Bailey, before we go, let's talk about your favorite subject the past decade and change, the French-American School of New York. You have an update on what's going on there in White Plains along the Gedney Way.
Well, what is happening is that place is just in limbo. It's in limbo because the appellate court definitely said that the Gedney Association lawsuit being handled pro bono by Dan Seidel and another lawyer impressed the appellate court to say that they will hear the case. When will they hear it? Mr. Seidel estimates about 2 years from now.
2 years from now. How about 2 weeks from now? After how many years has this been a story, a major story? More than a decade now.
The courts have been closed for months. They haven't been hearing cases.
Okay. So that's a reason
and so
why.
There's a tremendous backlog, and you go in line to the calendar. Once you decide, as I understand it, that we'll hear the case, then you have to fit it into your calendar. One would think that if you said, go ahead.
Shouldn't we have a mechanism where courts can move up cases that have been around forever, where they say, we got to get rid of this thing, let's do this now? And then when courts start to hear cases more and more, increase their caseload, they move up a case like this just to get rid of it. Not that you want to get rid of it without a fair verdict, a fair judgment being handed down, obviously, but we do have to move on sometimes.
Well, the appellate court has done a lot of weird stuff because they agreed to hear Adam Bradley. They gave Adam Bradley a new trial. And nobody thought the appellate court would cross the Westchester District Attorney.
We're talking about the former mayor of White Plains, correct?
That's right.
Yeah,
exactly. And so Adam Bradley was the appellate court. He didn't get a fair trial. And so what happens? Janet DiFiore, the DA, gets appointed chief judge of the Court of Appeals. Go figure. She doesn't give a guy a fair trial. The appellate court says she doesn't. She retries him, loses, and then she gets to the Court of Appeals. That is one of the great stories of all time.
Should we conclude about the French-American School of New York?
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. They are now trying to sell the place, but nobody's buying because of this lawsuit.
So should we conclude about the French-American School of New York for today, for this month of October 2020, that after all these years, and knowing that we're going to have to wait 2 more years or thereabouts for this case to be taken up in court
never
again,
ends.
From a repertorial standpoint, the case that never ends, or how about the gift that keeps on giving? For us in the media, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It writes the story for us.
That's right. And it's always there. It's always there. Every once in a while.
It's always there. You need a story? Let's do FASNY, the French-American School of New York. That's an ongoing story, and day by day for, about 12 years now, things keep changing practically.
This is year 11, I believe.
Yeah.
And we have another case developing. The 52 North Broadway situation on building apartments on the former Good Counsel High School, former Good Counsel property. Well, that is now proceeding to the council to consider the preliminary final impact statement, and it looks as this may drag on another year. This will be year 5 on this project. Year 5.
We have dueling property battles across White Plains.
Yeah. The tough thing is it does not bode well for White Plains and development in the future, because they look at all these problems that these 2 projects had that the city originally improved, and they got the neighbors creating a stir. And the problem is that the mayor listens when the neighbors scream, and he doesn't want to make a decision.
John Bailey is the publisher, editor of White Plains CitizenNet Reporter online, whiteplainscitizennetreporter.com. John Bailey, we thank you. Great to see you again. Let's do this again in a few weeks. It'll be presidential and around the area election time, too.
I know. Who knows? We may have a new justice of the Supreme Court by then.
The Supreme Court also. That situation, too, whether or not Amy Coney Barrett will be approved as the newest justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. I have a feeling by then, John, we might be voting by carrier pigeon or by drone run by
understand
Amazon
that Canada,
or Target or Walmart. Yeah, an Amazon, Target, or Walmart drone might be taking our ballots to the polls or taking them somewhere, and we hope they get counted.
Yes,
we'll see about all that.
Should have given the whole project to Amazon. They would have printed it.
Or Elon Musk will take your ballot in a Tesla and get it to a polling station.
And we understand Canada is considering building a wall across the northern border so Americans cannot immigrate.
Makes you think. John Bailey, we thank you here at Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. On the beat in Westchester, I'm John Marino. We thank you for joining us, and we are produced by Sharc Creative. You see the big Sharc Creative logo in orange and blue on the wall behind me. That is Sharc with a C, not a K, and we are made possible by our good friends at Entergy, the Indian Point Energy Center, supporting our communities through April 2021. Lipolis Electric. Don't be left in the dark. Get Lipolis. Hightower, Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. White Plains Hospital, thanks to all of our heroes over at White Plains Hospital, all the medical care facilities around our tri-state area for all you have done throughout this COVID-19 pandemic here in 2020. Wartburg Healthcare and Rehabilitation in Mount Vernon, Park Sterling Realty in Bronxville, and Michael Labriola, Landscape Design and Construction in Armonk. We say thanks to you one and all. We are Westchester Talk Radio, westchestertalkradio.com. Catch all of our Westchester, Fairfield County, Putnam, and Dutchess Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube.